Hey everyone. So this is sort of a follow-up to my best loadout video, specifically because of just things people have been saying. I don't think specifically in like reply to that video, but just more so in terms of me using not only that loadout but like wolf sled in general. People haven't really been saying much about plasma. I don't think it's more so just wolf sledge, and uh, and I'm not really changing my mind from. I'm not like really changing my mind from the things I've said in that video. Like I haven't really changed my mind on that, but at the same time, like um I guess I am still like pretty conflicted with just different things people say. Like uh a bunch of people, really like talk bad about my a lot of stuff, which is something that I'm used to. Like see, I'm using my scar cards layout sort of just in response to basically how these two guys were like behaving, just to show that like I don't like rely on Wolf Sledge, but then like they were saying stuff about me using Broken Scepter. So but anyway, basically I was showing that I don't like really rely on it. I was actually even earlier today I was using a brand new loadout. Um, Partially for that reason, like I definitely don't want to be reliant on Wolf Sledge, so like I do have to use other things occasionally and make sure that like I can actually use them well. And actually during that time when I was using that loadout, pretty quickly, actually after I started, there was actually someone who said that they actually missed my Wolf Sledge loadout, and like I don't think it was even like a full match that I played. Like I think it was like pretty much almost as soon as I entered the game. Like they asked if there was a new loadout, and then they said they missed Wolf Sledge. So like uh, you can sort of see like the problems that like this brings up. Like if like I could just like listen to the people who are like talking bad about the things I use, but if I don't have a way to like sort that out, like think of like what exactly I'm restricted to. And then like if I just decide to ignore people like that, if I just like decide to like ignore other people basically in general, like with how they judge what I use, then like I could potentially like use similar justifications to justify something like static core. And not say that like it's unjustified to use static core, but like I mean like justify like claiming that I'm skillful when I'm using it. Like if I don't listen to other people, I can just basically claim whatever I want, and uh, and that would basically be that. So like I have to listen to what other people say, but I can't listen to what everybody says. And so, sort of like what I've said in many videos before, I have to have like a way of sorting that out, which is basically just I need more reason than just like people claiming that it's cheese or whatever. And something that I've noticed from some people, I don't remember exactly who, but that's not important. Something that I've noticed from some people though is that like they see it as two sides: the people who are okay with it, and the people who are against it. So like, you take something like static core, you have a bunch of people who are against it, a bunch of people who are okay with it. And I think for the most part that's true for something like static core. But then like if when you go into like the less cheesy or non cheesy weapons, you sort of have like a category of people who like they're not just like okay with it, but they're more so for it. Like take the person who I said that said they missed Wolf Sledge, for example. I probably upload that video just because like it was my it was one of my first times using Shaku. Like I barely used it before, and I haven't used it since the melee update. So I'll probably be uploading that video where you can actually like see like me learning how to use it. Like for the longest, I wasn't able to use that one combo, but then I learned to use it more and more consistently over the course of a couple of games. Like, I kept rolling and I didn't, like, know what was happening. Anyway, um, so there are a lot of people who are, like, for it, too. So, like, take, that person, for example. Uh, you know, and, like, and those people are a lot like me in a way. Like, I personally like when people, try their hardest. I don't like when people, like, gimp themselves. And not to say that I'm like against it, but I prefer people to like really be trying their hardest to be giving like the best challenge, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And like it sort of really goes into like a general appeal of the game too, where like you probably see in chat at some point, uh where like I was sort of talking about like L and sort of like his mentality about a skill. Or I sort of mentioned that like he would probably be more suited for a game like Halo or Quake. And that's like the sort of issue that I see here a lot of times, where like people a lot of times don't like just like such a wide amount of things in the game, where I'm thinking that this isn't really a game that would appeal to them. Like, the types of PvP that I really like is the types of PvP that has lots of variation in it. And not even just like PvP in general, but like just games in general. So like I don't really, so like I like Halo, but like I don't really like it that much, because like it's not really static, but at the same time it could have a lot more variation than it does now. Like it's super structured in a way where like how most of the game is going to play out in terms of like general gameplay flow, and that's just not something that really appeals well to me. But in Warframe, like you don't know what people are going to use, how those things are going to interact with each other, especially in like a free for all, where like someone might, for example, there might be a limpo, and then there might be an XCal, and then that XCal might use limbo's rift to their advantage or something. Like that's the sort of thing that I find interesting, even if it might be like imbalanced or whatever. Uh, I find it interesting, and that's what keeps me entertained, really. And like so, like as much as I want it to be balanced, like this stuff that is like difficult to balance is the appeal for me. And so like when you have people like that are complaining about like basically every melee weapon, and then they're complaining about basically every AoE weapon, and then they're complaining about a lot of snipers or whatever variation of that there is. There are tons of variants to that, where like people just complain about a whole broad category of things. I think that's the point where like Warframe just shouldn't really be their choice of game. So that leaves me choosing between two different sides. It's sort of a spectrum in a way, but two different sides. So like there's a side where I use where if I go close to one side, that's where I use stuff that's like considered more cheesy, but like it's also the sort of stuff that like has me interested in the game, like the main appeal to me. Like if I was just using like if I was just like playing like L all the time, like I don't have a problem with that play style. I've said things about L before, but like his play style isn't something that I have an issue with. But like if that was the play style that like I would constantly use, I wouldn't actually be enjoying myself in the game. So one side is like pretty much going against that, where like I use like all the where I just use the stuff that I consider most interesting, most enjoyable. And if you notice, I don't really have an issue when people use most of the stuff against me. So like, I don't have a problem with other people using Wolf Sledge. I don't have a problem with other people using Arc of Plasmor. And you see a lot of times where like I build to counter this stuff, because that's sort of what this sort of game not really is all about, but it's a big part of it. As I said before, I think of it a lot like Pokemon. Like, uh, if you're having trouble with Ferrothorn, you should have a fire type move, for example. And if you're having trouble with Landorus, you should have like a fast ice type Pokemon. Of course, there are things that are like just like too powerful, where like even if you can counter them, um, like they're just not really balanced. Landorus, at least from 6th Gen, is a great example of that. And in the case of Warframe, you can see something like Staticore, where if you have enough mobility and stuff, or like even if you play sort of like I do, you've seen me counter Staticore many times. Like even against a player like Vader, I've been able to deal Staticore decently, but pretty much everyone can still agree that it's overpowered, even if they can deal with it. And so that's one side basically, and then the other side is to like go towards the more like really basic and like basic standard sort of stuff, like, you know, AR snipers, like nothing like with any like special effects or whatever. Maybe even like using less abilities or whatever, or like I guess more like generalized use abilities, like that kind of abilities that like Xcal has, where like they have really broad uses, where something like Oberon is semi-specialized, I'd say. And I guess like Limbo would be an example of something that's like really specialized. And so like those are basically the two sides I have to like pick between. And like on one side, it's like I don't on the like the more basic side, I don't really have fun as much. I don't play as well. But I think I would say I get more like respect from I get more or respect based on like my general mentality, I guess. And then if I go towards the other side, I'll play better. I'll have more fun, and I'll have like less. And I think I'll have like less overall respect, especially in regards to general mentality. But I think I would have more respect just based on pure performance, I guess, because that's when I would be able to be playing my best and stuff. So yeah, it's overall a really conflicting sort of situation. That's sort of my thoughts about it. Uh, and yeah, this video is mainly prompted by like this one occurrence, because like the main thing that really bothers me about this is that it's not the fact that people are just being mean. It's the fact that they aren't really. Because we have people like these two where like you've seen a lot of the stuff that they said like in like the first half of the video, but if you look at chat in this one, you'd see that like well, one of them left, but like the other one was like saying that, you know, that I wasn't like really bad. It was just, you know, that I'm being a bit cheap, I guess. And so like I don't know if I should agree with that or not. Like I'm not in the best position to determine whether or not I'm being cheap. So we have people that are against what I do and are being mean about it. We have people that support what I do and are being kind about it, and then a bunch of in-betweens. And, you know, it's hard to know like who to listen to and stuff. So as you can tell for now, like I am still using the stuff that I mainly enjoy, Wolf Sledge and whatever. What you'll also be able to see pretty soon, actually, probably on like Monday or whatever, once I decide to upload it, is you know, I am also still branching out, experimenting with new stuff, and like I don't know like what degree of balance I should do with this, because like there's always going to be people that are dissatisfied with what I choose, and yeah, that's about it. That's basically my big conflict right now, I guess.